Goodness me, when we got to the end of chapter 4, Tom was there with the lion just pinning him down. Such a dramatic part. We're going to rush on to chapter 5 and see what happened. And then it starts off with Tom face to face with the lion. At first, Tom thought he was having a bad dream. Everyone knows the only way to end a bad dream is to wake up. So he tried to wake up and found he couldn't. It was only when the lion began to lick his neck that he was sure it was no dream. The lion's breath was hot on his face and its tongue was exploring the back of his ear. It felt like warm, wet sandpaper. Tom closed his eyes and waited to be eaten. At least, he thought, when they find what's left of me, they'll know I was telling the truth. They'll know I wasn't making it all up. When the lion began to lick his chin and then his nose, it was more than Tom could stand, and he put out a hand to try to push him away. To his surprise, the lion at once stopped licking him and then sat back and yawned. In the light of the moon, Tom noticed something glinting around the lion's neck. He sat up to get a closer look. It was a large silver disc attached to a broad leather collar, and he could see there were letters on it. Now, if the lion's got a collar on him, and the collar has got a tag with letters on it, what does that tell us about the lion? Pets have collars and tags. This lion belongs to someone. Slowly, Tom reached out his hand, and as he did so, the lion rolled onto his back, just as Sam did whenever he wanted to be petted. The lion's even behaving like Tom's pet dog. Tom propped himself up on one elbow and began to stroke his tummy. The lion wriggled and squirmed with pleasure as Tom's hand moved to tickle him under his chin. This lion's no man-eater, Tom thought. He likes me. His fur was thick and warm. Then, before Tom knew it, 2 front paws were around his neck and pulling him downwards on top of the lion. Then the licking began all over again, and that was when the lion began to purr, a deep, roaring brrr. Tom was close enough to read the writing on the disc now. It read, Leo, Tell, Moortown 728. Tell. Now that would have been short for telephone. It's the telephone number of the owners, I presume. Until dawn, the boy and the lion wrestled and rolled together amongst the dead leaves. They played by the stream and ran up the hillside onto the moor. By now, Tom thought of the lion as no more than a large cat. He could feel the great strength of him, but he knew he was quite safe. They liked each other and they trusted each other. They sat side by side now, looking out across the moor at a rabbit cropping the grass. Suddenly the lion was gone. He leapt the stream and was bounding up the hillside. The startled rabbit bolted into a hole in the hedge, and the lion trotted back across the stream, up the mud beach, and sat down again to clean his dirty paws. "You're not very good at hunting, are you?" Tom said. "You're supposed to creep up, not go charging in like the cavalry. But then you're not a wild lion at all, are you? You're just a soppy old pussycat. Well, I can't leave you out here because all you could catch are sheep. And you've had a few of my dad's already, haven't you? Anyway, that name on the collar means you belong to someone, doesn't it?" The lion licked his whiskers and looked out for more rabbits. "What am I going to do with you?" said Tom, putting his arm around the lion's neck. "That's what I'd like to know. If I go back home and tell them you're out here, they won't believe me. And even if they did, they'd just hunt you down and shoot you. And I don't want that to happen." Tom thought for a moment. "Only one thing to do. I've got to take you back where you belong. That phone number on your collar should help. We'll go and see Claire. She'll know what to do. She always knows what to do. She always knows the right thing to do. The problem is, how am I going to get you there? I don't suppose you'll come when you're called like Sam, will you? What I need is a lead. He fished around his coat pocket to see if there was a nice piece of string in there, but there wasn't. And then he noticed the camera lying in amongst the leaves at the foot of the tree. Oh, it must have come off my neck when I tripped, he said. He picked it up and opened the case. It'll be your fault if it's broken, he said. How was I to know you were an old softy? You don't look like it, you know. The camera was not broken, and Tom was just putting it back in its case when he thought of the strap. It was a long one, and it was leather. Just what he was looking for. Don't know if you're trained to go on a lead, he said, slipping the strap through the lion's collar, but we'll soon find out. To begin with, the lion sat like a rock and looked at him. Nothing Tom did would budge him. He tried sweet-talking him and bribing him with the last of the meat scraps. He tried brute strength, tugging and heaving with all his might. Come on, Leo, he said. You've got to come. It'll be all right, honest. I won't let them hurt you. And he pulled again and again, but it was no good. The lion yawned and lay down, head between his paws. But Tom had one more idea to try. All right then, if that's how you feel, I'll leave you here. See if I care. And he dropped the lead and walked away. He'd not gone more than 50 metres before he heard the leaves rustling behind him. He turned round to see the lion bounding after him. I thought you'd come, Tom said, picking up the lead. You don't want to be left alone, do you? Come on now, we've got to go and find Claire, and we haven't got much time. And there's a few people I want you to meet as well. I know you're just a soppy old date, but they don't. I want you to look as fierce as you can. Look hungry, Leo. Show 'em your teeth. And Tom chuckled at the thought of taking the lion with him into school. Oh dear. Of course I don't want you to eat them, not even Barry, he said. Don't suppose he'd taste very nice anyway. I just want you to frighten them, that's all. And the lion padded along beside him out of the wood and up over the fields towards the town. What would you do if you found a lion who was quite friendly? Would you go and show him off? Would you go and frighten someone? Would you bring him into school? Could you imagine a lion in Elm class? Tom's mother went to wake him at 7 o'clock as usual. His bed was empty. That didn't surprise her. Tom often went and made himself a cup of tea if he woke up early, but when she came down to get breakfast ready, she saw the back door was open. That didn't surprise her either. Tom's father was always leaving the door open when he went out milking. But as she was closing it, she noticed that Tom's boots and coat were not there. She called out around the house. Oh, perhaps he's gone off milking with his father, she thought, so she hurried down the path to the dairy, still in her slippers. Tom wasn't there. I'm looking for Tom, she said. Tom's father shook his head. Hadn't been here, he said. Expect he's been looking for that dog of his. Hardly seen that boy since the dog went off. Give him a shout. He'll be about somewhere. I've been shouting, said Tom's mother, and he hasn't answered. He hasn't come back. He's not here. You think something's wrong, don't you? Tom's father said. She nodded. I'm worried, she said. He's not been the same ever since Christmas. I'll finish this cow and I'll come, Tom's father said. He'll be about somewhere. They searched the farm together, every building and barn, but there was no sign of Tom. They climbed the haystacks and lofts and ran out across the fields calling for him. They looked along the banks of the stream and combed the wood from end to end. Only Ghost Cottage left to check, said Tom. Do you remember who's in Ghost Cottage? That's right, Sam, the dog. If he's not there, then we'll have to call the police." As they came to the door of the cottage, they could hear Sam whimpering and whining inside. Tom's father opened the door and the dog bounded out. He tried to catch him, but the dog was past them in a flash and running off to the woods. They followed him, shouting for him to come back, but Sam was on the scent of the lion, and nothing would stop him. The dog ran as far as the stream, nose to the ground. Once there, he sniffed furiously in the leaves. Then his hackles rose, and he barked an angry, rasping bark. When they caught up with him at last, they found the giant footprints in the mud by the stream where Tom had been playing with the lion only an hour or two before. They were too big for a dog, too big for a fox, and too big for a badger. Tom's parents looked at each other. Both of them knew what it was. "It's Tom's lion, isn't it?" said Tom's mother, crouching down. Tom's footprints were there too. "And that's Tom's Wellington, isn't it?" "Looks like his size," said Tom's father. "And I wouldn't believe him. I wouldn't even listen to him. And now God knows what's happened. I'll never forgive myself. Never." What do you think his mum and dad are feeling? What an awful position to be in. Good job we know Tom's safe. Let's carry on. In the half-light of the early winter morning, Tom hurried on towards the town. He knew the countryside like the back of his hand. He crossed roads only when he was sure he wouldn't be seen, and stayed well out of sight of the houses and cottages. The lion loped along beside him, and he never once tried to break away. The town was waking up by the time he got there. Lights were on in the houses, and there were already a few cars out on the roads. Tom sat down with the lion under a hedgerow and wondered how he could get to Clare's house without being seen. "Well, I can't go up the main street," he said. "Too many people about. I can't risk it. We'll have to go round the back. Thing is, I've never been round the back of her house. I don't even know if she's got a garden. Still, I know where the shop is, and I know she lives there. The butcher's shop is painted pink on the front, so it'll probably be the same on the back. We'll find it." Tom found the house easily enough, for as he crept along the fence behind the houses, he saw the butcher's van parked outside. Written on the side he read, "J. Newman, Butchers of Quality." The lion smelt the van all over, and it was all Tom could do to haul him away. They opened the back gate and ran across the little lawn, past a swing and a sandpit, to the lighted kitchen window. Clare was eating her cornflakes at the table, and her mother was peering into the toaster by the oven. Tom tapped on the window, but Clare was reading the back of the cornflakes packet and didn't even look up. He knocked again, a little louder this time, and Clare's mother turned around. Tom ducked down and held his breath. He heard talking inside. Suddenly the lion was up on his back legs, peering in at the window. Tom tried to pull him down, but he wouldn't come. And then the door opened. It was Clare that came out, not her mother. She had her glasses in her hand. She looked at the lion, then she put her glasses on and looked at the lion again. "You found him then? Mum would have had 50 fits if she'd seen that," she said. The lion hissed at her and backed away. "It's all right," Clare said. "I won't hurt you. Mum's gone upstairs, Tom. I'm supposed to be watching the toast. I haven't got much time." "He's tame," Tom said. "Just like a big pussycat he is." "Course he is. You'd be dead, wouldn't you?" she said. "Thought you said they didn't kill people," Tom said. "They don't, except when they've got nothing else to eat," Clare said. "What's that thing around his neck?" She came down slowly towards the lion, her hand held out. Tom felt the lion stiffen beside him and then relax as Clare crouched down and tickled him behind his ears. "It's his name, and I think it's a phone number too," Tom said. "Leo," Clare read out. "That's lion in Latin." She stood up. "Soon as I've finished my breakfast and Mum's gone out to work, I'll phone up Moortown 728, wherever that is, and I'll tell them to come and fetch him, right?" "All right," said Tom, "but first I'm going to take him to school and show everyone I was telling the truth. And then we'll take him to that rotten police station." Then I'll tell them to come and pick him up from the police station, shall I? Said Claire. I've got to go now. You wait in Dad's potting shed at the back of the garden, then we'll go to school together. I want to be there when Barry Parsons sees the lion. I wouldn't miss that for anything. And she smiled up at Tom and stroked the lion's head. He's beautiful, she said. Isn't he beautiful? And she turned to go indoors. Tom, she said, I think you're very brave. Well, for a boy, that is. And she was gone. Tom and the lion didn't have long to wait in Claire's father's potting shed, but before Claire came for them, the lion had turned over almost every pot in the shed. Claire looked at the mess on the floor. My dad won't be very pleased, she said, shaking her head. Oh, never mind. I'll tell him it was a fox. Come on, we'll be late. You phoned up that number? Tom asked. They're coming over right away, she said. The man said he's been missing for over 6 months now. No one's seen him. They thought he was dead. And it's miles away too, right over the other side of the moor, over 60 miles or more away. He's a long way from home. As they came round the corner into the main street, people turned and looked, and then turned and looked again. I'm going to enjoy this, Claire said. So am I, said Tom. So am I. And there's the bit that was round Leo's neck with the phone number. And I've got to tell you, Elm Class, chapter 6 is the last chapter of the book. So next time we get together, we will get to the end. Oh, I have enjoyed it so far, and I can't wait to see how it all ends up. See you soon.